I'm a simple man, and I enjoy simple things, like Epstein's Island. So whenever I hear someone say, "Oh, did you hear about the mass firings that just happened? A lot of people lost their jobs." I instantaneously ask, "What are we exactly talking about? Who got fired?" And when the answer is, "Oh, it was Ubisoft, the Ubisoft developers and workers, their lives got ruined," and I instantaneously start to smile. I get happy. I get excited. Because these people at Ubisoft, at Blizzard, at Bethesda, and so many other companies deserve the worst. They deserve to be fired. They deserve to be let go. They deserve to be homeless. They deserve to be blacklisted. They have caused so much harm, so much damage. And some of you are, wow, aren't you going a little bit too overboard with this? And the answer is no. Not even close, in fact. Because these people wish all of those things on us. They don't care about circumstances. They're just like, "Oh, you're not with us, so you're against us. You deserve to be homeless on the streets and worse things happening to you." So when something like that happens to these people, I'm not in the slightest bit unhappy about that. I think it's finally karma. And I think it's hitting hard. And I'm happy for that.
This isn't just a story about video games. It's a story about family. Specifically, the Guillemot family. They are the family who lost a company once before to a hostile takeover, and they will do almost anything to avoid losing another. And that
except make money so they actually, can fight a hostile takeover. But I mean, what do we know, right?
has defined everything going on.
When was the last time you heard that a company should be making money? Never, obviously, in the modern day.
On with Ubisoft in the year of 2025, and it will define the future. All eyes have been on Assassin's Creed Shadows, and for good reason, because if it completely blew in terms of sales, they would be in a lot of trouble. But AC...
And it did? And it did? I mean, obviously we know that the current circulation of news from the legacy media is a full-blown lie. And they're saying, "Oh, Assassin's Creed Shadows is the fastest-selling Assassin's Creed game. If we compare it to Valhalla and Odyssey, it's gonna sell literally 100 million copies by the end of the year." Now, I don't know about you, but they're literally like 2-3 days away from the end of the year, and I haven't heard Ubisoft saying that they're on their way to sell 100 million copies. I haven't heard them even say that they're on their way to sell 2 million copies. So, press X to doubt.
Shadows is not where the real action was. But don't worry, we found the action, and you're going to get it today. You see, 2025 saw the Guillemots face down hostile investors, it saw them pull off corporate skullduggery with their friends at Tencent, and lock their family name into Ubisoft.
The idea, by the way, that Tencent is helping the Guillemots is insane. So anyone that says that Tencent is helping them is just wrong by definition.
Ubisoft's future for good. They're going to keep Ubisoft alive and under their control, even if it's at the expense of their staff, some of their investors, and their studios. All
based and good.
Good stories need a beginning, and if I did the true beginning, it would involve, well, the Guillemot brothers and farm machinery. So let's not do that, and I'll start in 2024, because it was supposed to be Ubisoft's glorious return. It was not. They accidentally started the Stop Killing Games movement because they delisted the crew, so, oops, domino theory. And between that and years of disappointment, they've lost the goodwill of their audience near entirely. X-Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws were supposed to turn everything around, but X-Defiant flopped so...
Anyone who expected Star Wars Outlaws to turn anything around has not been paying any attention to what's happening. Star Wars Outlaws is easily... Dude, we have... You can't even make a top 10 verse AAA game list this year. Honestly, you can't. It needs to be like top 20 because otherwise we can't even get half of the truly horrendous things in. It has been a year of the AAA disasters. It truly has.
hard that Ubisoft quickly killed it, and Outlaws did not land for audiences or for the balance sheet. They did try to fix it, but the damage was done, and all this left Ubisoft with no choice. Now, they had already laid off 1,200 people across the year, 3,000 since 2022, but they couldn't just save money. They would actually have to do this bizarre thing that businesses are supposed to do called making money. And to make money, AC Shadows had to work. And throughout all of this, they had activist investors laying the groundwork to force the Guillemot family out of leadership entirely. Let's talk about the activist investors. Now, I know that whenever you hear activist, you may think, Greenpeace. This is Greenpeace and PETA, but investors. No, that is not what an activist investor is.
Well, actually, that is exactly what an activist investor is. Activist investors invest in causes. I don't even actually know any other definition for an activist investor. It's just an investor who invests money into things that he thinks have social impact, typically. I don't even know what kind of other activist investor definition is there.
Don't worry, we'll get to an explanation of all of this. So, because of everything I covered in their absolutely shit 2024, 25 started off with a second delay to Assassin's Creed Shadows, one where Ubisoft doubled down on killing season passes and gave their first expansion away for free to all pre-order people. The delay was partially to improve,
and no one played it. No one liked it. Dude, even I remember watching, was it Joe Raptor's review of the Assassin's Creed Shadows new expansion, or was it Luke Steffens? And it's like, and then the review was like, so they added a boa staff. The game's still bad. That was pretty much the review. It was glorious. Okay, very, very good
performance, and it was partially to avoid getting bodied by Monster Hunter, which itself really should have delayed for the sake of performance, but wasn't able to because of arcane corporate reporting reasons that we covered in a bunch of other videos. But at the time, there was a concession made to investors. This happened right as they delayed Shadows. You see, advisors were brought in to recommend ways to, quote, unlock the value potential of our assets. So they basically said that at the same time that they said they'd delay Shadows.
God, advisors are just such a grift, okay? I need to find a way to become some kind of advisor. Because let's be real, Sweet Baby Inc. made a lot of money, okay? And they're advising pure bullshit. I mean, I need to find a way to become some kind of advisor. I need to find some real grifts, okay? People call me a grifter here. Well, actually, no one does. But I like to take myself off. Dude, I never get into any grift tier lists, okay? Everyone else is a grifter and evil person, but I have morals? Bro, what do you mean? I have the least morals and I'm not even hiding it. What are we talking about? I said I sold my soul for a sponsorship of something that I called bad like 5 seconds ago, and I will. Oh no! Quasar's not a grifter. What? I'm the biggest one, please. Like, everyone's enjoying being on these evil grifter lists. I got on one. I don't remember what it was about, but I got on one list. It's so disappointing. I'm trying so hard here, and my efforts are not being recognized. It's honestly saddening.
And the translation to the layperson is basically, we brought in people to value everything we've got, work out how much shit we can sell, how many staff we can yeet into the bin, and find a whole bunch of ways to become more profitable. Now, all of this was said for a reason. It was said to keep activist investors like AJ Investments at bay. Activist investor basically just means an investor who will open a position at a company with a very strong thesis of how that company should change. They will often then advocate for that change. They will try to rally other shareholders behind them, and ultimately, they will...
Yes! Yeah, this is pretty much almost one for one what I said, but with extra steps.
Want to do something like lead a leveraged buyout, that kind of thing. And don't worry, all that will feature in this story. But all of these investors were causing a bunch of noise. That noise was not good for the Guillemots, and that noise actually happened even as staff were striking. against layoffs at Leamington, Dusseldorf, Stockholm, and Ubisoft Reflections. Basically, in this
Dusseldorf doesn't even sound like a real place.
period of time, you have the activist investors kicking up a storm, Shadows not releasing yet, and the Guillemot family in a sticky position. They essentially had to play for time and hope against hope that Shadows would sell. But as of now, the puzzle isn't complete. There is one more piece, and that piece is Tencent. They were working in the background to find a way to support the company, and at the time, speculation was that they may just purchase Ubisoft outright. Now, that
And I said that that's impossible.
Tencent would be deeply involved really wasn't a surprise to any deep Ubisoft followers. You know, all 7 of us. Tencent rescued the Guillemot family from a hostile takeover from Vivendi during the late 2010s. But at the time the rumor mill was suggesting Tencent could just acquire Ubisoft outright, well, that was a bit weird because it would have been contractually difficult. In order to actually do that, they would have to get extremely creative in how they do business shenanigans. And that type of creativity is the type of creativity that can get a company in trouble. And that's where AJ Investments come in. You see, they allege that Ubisoft had been secretly meeting with Microsoft, EA, and Tencent about the sale of intellectual property, and that this was all a pattern. A pattern including hidden deals.
What do you mean? Secretly? Should they have tweeted it out or something?
With Saudi Arabia for Assassin's Creed Mirage DLC, and even alleging that delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows was done to keep the stock price low. You know, potentially to facilitate.
There were so many people that actually bought into some of the bullshit said here. One of my favorite and probably by far lowest IQ theory that people were presenting here is that Tencent actually wants Ubisoft's stock to go down so they can buy it up cheaper. You understand? You understand Tencent invested into Ubisoft stock like when it was literally 7 times more expensive than it is now, right? you understand that, right? Tencent lost a shit ton of money. So they're not happy about the idea, oh, we can buy scraps now for scrap money, and it's never going to be worth anything because we have lost literal billions. You understand that, right? It's not really complicated to understand it. If you buy a stock at $35 and it goes down to $2 and there is no chance it's going up, that's not exactly a good thing to happen, and they didn't actually want that to happen. But some people, there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, this is it. This is the idea." Crazy stuff. Some people do not deserve the same rights we do. Okay.
A good price for the people who would be acquiring the company. Now, most of this was just posturing, and AJ released the statement to IGN specifically to rile up public outrage. They knew it would draw attention, and that attention would give them some leverage. This is especially with a lot of discourse going on and trending after a minor but controversial Japanese politician linked the game to concerns about shrine damage from tourists. Ubisoft got ahead of that one by making shrine objects indestructible in-game, which is an interesting little move because I believe Ghost of Tsushima also had destructibility stuff around the shrines, but, well, people were more willing to like that game, it seems. But with all this online hate only getting hotter, well, harassment started to happen a bit more towards the people actually making Shadows. Ubisoft then followed Square Enix and Sega's lead by announcing they would pursue legal action against any proven harassment. But this was also the time when the company's future started to take shape.
You know what Ubisoft also did? We never talked about it because it was kind of... well, we did slightly talk about this, but... I think it was Ubisoft, or was it Ghost of Yote or something like that, that said that they are getting ready to sue anyone who harasses their staff when their game releases. And I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. Who the hell cares to harass your staff because your game's shit? Well, no one. No one did. But Ubisoft was like, oh, our legal team is ready. Yes. And it's like, ready for what? No one cares.
And that's because the Guillemots and Tencent finally found their corporate loophole, one that could protect them from the likes of AJ Investments. And for this loophole to work, all they would have to do is launch Shadows well. Here's the bit that's shocking to many. Against all expectations, they did with Shadows. And that's because when you set aside the COVID-boosted AC Valhalla, Shadows is actually the second highest day one sales in franchise history. It got...
Day one sales don't matter because we now live in a different time. The day one sales actually do matter, but now, with the prevalence of the internet and small YouTubers, big YouTubers, and everyone talking about these things and wokeness and whatnot, everyone knows that big stuff is launching, and everyone knows if it's trash or not. So, games now literally get like 90% of their sales, not even in the first month, it's like the first fucking week. And after that, it starts drying up real good. And if your game is bad, that's it. Those day one sales are pretty much the only thing you have. Well, first 3-day sales. Well, until the first weekend, I guess. That's not a lot. That is not a lot of time. So the fact that they have good day one sales, I actually believe that. Because historically, the trend is very new. Historically, this has been a trend just for, roughly a year. Roughly a year only. So, this still looks good. But this is going to get worse and worse and worse as the years pass and if the trend keeps up. Because, currently it's like the new thing versus the old thing, and the new thing works completely different than the old thing. So it's comparing apples to oranges. But soon, as time passes, we will be able to compare apples to apples. And then this is not going to look good versus something that's actually not a good product.
Positive reviews, almost no performance issues. Some say it was one of the best versions.
Well, not that Ubisoft will ever know what a good game looks like and a good launch actually is.
Versions of the Assassin's Creed RPG formula, and apparently for some the dual protagonists were good, and that the stealth actually was good, real stealth. Yasuke existing to just smash things about with a big katana actually meant that the stealth was freed up to be a stealth game. And it seems that this stuff worked in a way that in Outlaws things just didn't work. All that really matters is that the initial launch was good enough for the Guillemots to achieve their goals. So because of all this, the Guillemots were actually able to save themselves from their investors by just sidestepping them entirely with Tencent. You see, here's the deal. Tencent literally were not allowed to buy any more shares in Ubisoft.
Yes.
So they didn't buy shares in Ubisoft. Instead, they invested 1.6 billion euro into a newly created subsidiary for just 25% ownership of said subsidiary. Staff eventually voted to call this group Vantage Studios, and it would own the teams behind Assassin's
Oh, look at that! The staff had a choice! Yay!
Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six, whilst also licensing the IP from Ubisoft proper. Right? So Vantage doesn't own the IP. It licenses it from the main Ubisoft corporate body. And what this essentially gives those studios and stuff is near full creative control.
Wait a minute. That's sus. Didn't we previously hear that the good IPs are actually gonna get put on that studio? If that has changed, then I'm assuming it's the fact that, again, I said this a million times, I will say it again. Europe is not gonna allow, because this is a Europe thing. Europe is not gonna allow this to happen. America may allow Chinese spies to sleep with their diplomats, okay? We don't. We send them to islands with worse stuff.
A situation where their Paris-based board would have the final say in things, but where, for the most part, Vantage could just do whatever it needed. Now you may think, hang on, this is a bit weird. What does Ubisoft actually get out of this? Security. The funds cleared almost all of the debt that they were carrying, and the new terms meant that Ubisoft's 3 biggest IPs could no longer be sold in any form of hostile takeover, because now Tencent would be a built-in partner and owner and could block any acquisition plays. And what all of this really bought is what the Guillemots needed most. Time. They have 2 years.
By the way, what he just said doesn't work like that. If you're a publicly traded company and Tencent owns 25% of the new thing, Tencent can't just magically block stuff from happening. I have no idea what the point of this is. This has not a lot to do with hostile takeovers or anything, honestly. Because none of the stuff that Bellier says works like I think he thinks it does. Ubisoft giving 20% of the new company to Tencent doesn't give them magical veto powers.
To make Ubisoft profitable again. Let's talk about the beans. So, fiscal year 24-25 ended in a loss. Sales were down 20%, and they didn't expect full profitability yet, but they say they felt safe. They basically looked at the success of Shadows, and they announced that all their games would now be required to hit this.
Oh, the success of Shadows. Man, I'm so tired of hearing that stupid stuff. They stopped reporting when they hit 3 million players. Not payers, but players, keep in mind.
Same level of polish, even if it meant delays. Their next quarterly update was essentially more of the same, though it did include an apology to the harassment and abuse victims of 3 recently convicted Ubisoft executives.
LOL?
Yes, actually convicted in court, not public opinion. So, serious enough stuff. Now, July saw Ubisoft double down on this new approach. Earlier on in the year, they had licensed Prince of Persia to the Dead Cells developer to basically do a 2D roguelike. In July, they went even further. They licensed Heroes of Might and Magic to a small indie, and then partnered
Hell yeah, this is actually one thing I'm excited for.
with Hooded Horse to publish it. You may know Hooded Horse and the likes of Manor Lords and all.
Hooded Horse is one of my probably favorite indie publishers, or whatever the hell they're called. They made Against the Storm and a lot of other good stuff.
Honestly, a string of bangers. It's a smart move. I mean, why wouldn't Ubisoft want to benefit from Hooded Horse's beloved reputation with genre fans? That will absolutely make people more willing to buy stuff. But then, they actually went one step further. They weren't doing anything with Grow Home, Cold Fear, I Am Alive, or Child of Eden. So why not just sell them to someone who would do something with them? That someone ended up being Atari. Atari bought the rights and started working on modernized ports of those games. Basically, those IPs don't fit the new Ubisoft model, especially not as Vantage Studios was taking shape, which at the very least is a silver lining in today's story. But with that said, I think it's now time we properly talk about Vantage Studios. We found out about the leadership of Vantage Studios in a rather funny softball interview with Yves Guillemot. And in that, we found out the new leaders include Charlie Guillemot, his son, who has returned after 4 long years of wandering the deserts of the mobile games and Web3 game spaces. That was, of course, all after he left Ubisoft initially over disgrace at Elite Squad, a mobile game that sort of used the whole resistance fist thing. There was big old controversy with that. But the thing we also learned...
Listen, boys. We can be mad about the billionaires and trillionaires, but remember, generational wealth typically never survives longer than 2 generations, okay? At some point, you're gonna have kids who are spoiled enough, stupid enough, out of touch enough, and this happens. Yes, life is sometimes actually that simple, and I like that.
Is that he's in the family, but he's not actually at the top. Because the real head honcho is veteran developer Christophe, and he has been framed as the other figurehead. Now, he's the guy who ran Ubisoft Montreal during Valhalla's release, and then ran all of Ubisoft America since 2023. So, a safe pair of hands. Admittedly, sort of pair of pseudo-Guillemot hands, because he's also Yves' cousin. Yes, so it's quite a family matter. Now, the structure under these 2 fellas would actually...
Nepotism is a gift.
Be a bit different, and not just the structure of leadership, but also how these studios and companies would be ran. What they basically said is that Vantage was a creative house, running each IP without red tape, and that it would be the first of many, and that Ubisoft planned to roll out this new structure of creative houses built around IPs company-wide. Now, at the time, we wondered, will this mean that creative leadership will lose out to business leadership? And the...
Okay, I'm kind of confused, though, about the point of this video. I thought this is about staff getting fired. I'm not gonna lie, you know? From the intro, you probably figured out that I was expecting people to get fired, but currently, it's not looking like that.
update is that the cracks have appeared to show within just a few months. A leak made to GameFile revealed that the Paris leadership group had actually shut down an Assassin's Creed game set after the American Civil War in July 2024.
Oh, I know this one. This was so hilarious. You were gonna be fighting the KKK. Man, why did they have to shut it down? It would have been the cringiest, funniest thing ever. It probably would be on equal grounds with a black man destroys Japanese history and blackens one of their most known kings, effectively. Well, shoguns, I guess.
Suggesting it would be too political in a country too unstable. Now that interference has continued into 2025. Remember the Saudi-backed DLC for...
Hey, listen, if the lefties just start being insane... Well, no, stop being insane. They're already insane. If the lefties just stop being insane, the political turmoil pretty much just stops existing, okay? Pretty simple.
AC Mirage? Turns out that was real. It was funded by a Saudi historical society with government ties. Now, this DLC and expansion content got made because someone else was footing the bill, and the Guillemots were happy enough to work with anyone who would play along and, give them money. What will the Saudis buy next? I don't know. Place your bets in the comments. Now, not everyone was thrilled by all of this change. I'm afraid I'm going to butcher his name, but Mark Alexis Coates, something like that? The man who actually delivered Shadows and architected the franchise's future within the whole Animus, an Assassin's Creed hub spanning all Assassin's Creeds that they've been talking about in some way or shape for a few years now. He's a pretty important dude, but he left the company after 20 years of service.
Good.
A company-wide email said he had, quote, chosen to pursue a new path, but an internal note seen by IGN blamed, quote, his own expectations and priorities about franchise development under Vantage. He then struck back on LinkedIn, saying that Ubisoft had, quote, asked him to step aside when they put Assassin's Creed under new management. He simply chose not to accept what he saw as a lesser position. So this is at least one example of the whole creative house.
I mean, listen, you don't get to make Assassin's Creed Shadows and be like, oh, me making this slop is going to have consequences. Yeah, that's not how it works.
Is planned with Vantage, leading to a fairly well-tenured, experienced person leaving, and leaving in a way where they're publicly willing to have spats with their former employer. And as we would continue to see, and as the rest of the company feared, the new structure cared about games. Only the games. Not only the people making them, who are kind of important if you know.
The people making the games are the problem.
Want to get the game actually made. So more layoffs hit Red Links and Stockholm in October. Massive Entertainment then paid the price for Outlaws and Avatar underperforming, even as Division 3 development.
Dude, the Avatar game was so disappointing. It wasn't disappointing, it wasn't even a game.
Got underway. But all eyes were on the next financial report, because this is the report that would have the first real data on whether Shadows had actually saved the company, or whether it had suffered a Monster Hunter-style slump in sales after launch. After a brief panic when the earnings call was delayed by a month, Ubisoft revealed things were actually pretty okay. Turns out Division 2 and Shadows both overperformed expectations. Division 2 is a game I'd completely forgotten about, but there you go. Apparently it has actually overperformed, and as much as I know some people...
By the way, this is... you can lie like this, because this is not a liable statement. You cannot be taken to court. You can just say, well, it overperformed. We expected to sell -3 copies, but we sold only -1 copies. There you go. Overperformed. Wow. Yes. These statements can be lied about because no one can do anything about it.
Would say, why don't they simply lie? If you do that in the earnings report, you get in a lot of trouble from a lot.
No, you don't. Again, no, you don't. As long as you don't lie because your expectations are shit and you exceed them, you're not lying. Again. My job was literally to do this shit sometimes. It's not hard. It's not complicated. Literally, I have experience in lying in these things while it's not lying. It's not hard. It's really not hard. Okay? So, everyone does this. It's a white lie. No, it's not actually a white lie, but you get the point. It's not a lie, but it's actually intended to work as a lie.
A lot of people with a lot of government power. That's the sort of thing Ubisoft couldn't squirm its way out of.
There's no government power in any of this. The shareholders are gonna sue you if you will lie, or if they think you are lying, or if they think you are destroying the company intentionally. And that almost never happens because it's too hard.
The Saudi DLC pushed Mirage to 10 million lifetime players, and the delay in their earnings call actually came down to concerns about how their debt was calculated against loans. But since the Tencent deal had closed the very same day, they basically cleared that up instantly. The layoffs meant far lower costs against the revenue that they were generating, and this all meant that, for the first time since 2020, Ubisoft could look to the future. Man, I remember.
Wait. Imagine all of this effort for Ubisoft. For a failing franchise of a company that has absolutely no shot at becoming better. That is crazy. Not crazier than Microsoft paying $9 billion for Starfield, but pretty crazy.
Remember the day that it all changed. I remember covering the colossal disappointment of Ghost Recon Breakpoint and the subsequent delays.
I'm sorry, is that a woman? Is that supposed to be a woman? What in the sweet mother of diversity hires even is this?
Across everything that Ubisoft did that just set them up for years upon years of chaos. It now seems some of that mess is cleared up. As for the future, well, Prince of Persia and a leaked Assassin's Creed Black Flag remaster are the only premium games that will come before June of 2026, and neither of them will return.
Do you think they actually managed to ruin the Black Flag remaster or remake or whatever it's called? I mean, they probably will make it worse.
The company to profitability. The big games that can do that sort of thing will come later, and that means they'll still have to keep their investors happy, which is why Eve was more than happy to call generative AI, quote, as big a revolution for our industry as the shift.
Oh yeah, Ubisoft is gonna go to do AI stuff now because of course they will. Anyway, that was Bellier 10 out of 10. Bye!